So we've got the incredible Eli back on. Thank you for coming back on, Eli, from the Freemelon Society. Amazing work you are doing, spreading.
Yes, my pleasure.
Yeah, so thank you again for coming back on. You've been on twice now with great conversations. 8 years eating only fruit, fruitarian, and your background is doing a lot of fitness work. You're basically an athlete. You're a stuntsman. So very high energy, lean, strong. So yeah, it's incredible what you I love it. So we've got lots, even within the raw vegan community. So we've got our raw, free raw living group. It's massively increasing, and there's still some conflicts and confusion with the sugar and the protein. So we're going to go back to basics as well, and then there's a few questions that we'll dig a little deeper. But I've got a lot of newbies in the group, newbies on this channel that are curious about this lifestyle, not even just raw living, but fruitarian lifestyle. And I want to go into some of the myths, the confusion that's out there. So I think I'll start off straight away with these questions because they are really good. So I'll
Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to start. Just to go right into the questions, and then we can get into some of the.
I'll share the two of your story anyways, because you've got a great, your whole 8 years in they'll come into the questions anyways when you answer them, but I've got the videos of our interviews and I'll put that in the description box for those to find out more about your story, how you became fruitarian, but I'm sure we'll be dabbling into that anyways. So here we go. We've got Vincent. Vincent Helms has said, his advice on best way to transition if you're coming from a fairly toxic diet. So I'm assuming a standard diet of meat, dairy, eggs, cooked starches. So what would you say would be the best way?
Best way to transition from a toxic diet is I would say step one is, because if you're concerned about your health and you don't want delay, you don't want too much delay, I can understand that. I would say you'd have to identify the major offenses, like the absolute major, I always call them landmines, the major landmines and offenses in the diet. And those you have to give away pretty much right away. I would suggest. Some people would tell you that you can transition away from like the really awful stuff. I would say no, the really awful stuff you have to give up completely. So if we're talking about processed meat products, processed dairy products, or dairy products in general, and processed foods, other processed food, processed carbohydrates, like fast food, restaurant food. Okay, if we're talking about that stuff, that you just got to toughen up. That you give up right away, but you can include pretty much everything else in the whole food world, and cooked and prepared is acceptable too. Seasonings and all that. That's all fair game. So best way to transition if you're coming from a really toxic diet, okay, is first thing to do, you want to, if eliminating all the landmines is a problem, then pick the most difficult to deal with, right? Pick one and then make sure that's eliminated, and then just find suitable replacement. Okay, so you're going to want to go down the list of the worst offenses and then just systematically eliminate those completely. Find something that is suitable for you and that's rich enough for you to kind of let your body let's see, because like when you go to a cleaner diet, sometimes the calorie density of whole foods, it's less than in these ultra processed foods. So your body might not have the efficiency at first to be able to get nutrition from the whole foods. So you might need to use denser whole foods to kind of fill that gap, fill that void a little bit. This is a long-winded answer. Okay. First, get rid of the stuff that is really bad for you. Processed foods, namely processed foods. Okay. Get rid of the processed foods. And then once you've gotten rid of processed foods, you want to systematically eliminate the other foods that are still lingering in your diet that you've identified as things that you want to give up, and then make up for them by being satiated, right? You don't want to worry about intermittent fasting or anything at first.
Yeah.
Just be satiated completely with whole foods, uh, either raw or cooked, and just make sure they're whole plant based. So don't be hungry. This is not the time to do any kind of restricting from a caloric standpoint. Just be satiated as much as possible so that you're always good and feeling fine, and then let your body get accustomed to satisfying hunger and cravings with whole foods at least, right? And then if you can do that, then you'll be on your way to making further subsequent changes. So get rid of the landmines. Those are just health destroying. The ultra processed foods, that has to go immediately, day one.
Yeah.
Find replacements anywhere in the whole food community, in the whole food world. That's very easy. Go to YouTube, type in plant-based meal, right? You
Mm-hmm.
will, for days, you can be scrolling, okay? Easy. So just stick with that. All sorts of flavors to keep your palate satisfied, and just make sure you're satiated throughout the day, and let yourself get accustomed to satisfying food cravings with whole food. And then once you're settled at that level, then you can make whatever other improvements that you want.
Yeah, I found going from eating meat to mock meats, not great, but I transitioned to the vegan lifestyle. And then I did go through the whole unhealthy vegan. And then I was doing the raw until dinner. And that was just raw foods all day with gourmet and 10 banana smoothies. You know, Freely used to share, I used to smash in the calories. But that helped me with my binge eating because I was excessive binge eater. So I was replacing all the processed junk but with loads of smoothies and smoothie bowls, and just having as much as it. And that really helped me transition over time. And for a year I did fluctuate in my weight. I was just like, okay, this is still, I thought I'd lose loads of weight. Everyone was saying, oh, you'll lose loads of weight when you go whole foods plants. I didn't, because my body was adjusting, and I was just still eating for comfort and emotion. So just satisfying, like you were saying, that initial the cravings, and then you gradually just start to take things out. You know, I encourage, depending on if meats are not first, take the dairy out first, then the meat out, and then go in to take all the cooked starches, the oils, definitely the processed oils are the number one. But they get, fried stuff, take that out. So it's all dependent on where they are, and just start eliminating, and then bringing more in. And it's a process, it's a journey. It might not happen overnight. It takes time for some, and there's, depending on the health and the toxicity of the body and how aggressive it is for you when you transition, you can take a step back.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a blend. It's a mixture of being very disciplined on some things, because like if you're looking to make the change, obviously you've come onto some new material that has inspired you to make a change in your health. That's a good thing. So whatever it is you've discovered, let that discipline you and say, okay, I'm making this change now. So there's some things where you just hard and fast rules, okay? You just eliminate. But then in another respect, you have to be very gentle, very lenient with yourself, and allow yourself the process. People mess that up all the time.
Yeah.
Allow yourself the process. Be very gentle. There's no rush. Okay.
Yeah.
There is a rush if we're talking about the things that are literally destroying you harshly every single day, like the toxic stuff. That there is a bit of a rush. Get that out of your
Processed
lifestyle
fried.
immediately.
Yeah.
Yes, immediately. No time to waste. No
Yeah.
kidding around, no screwing around. But the other stuff, like when it comes to transitioning the types of whole foods and how you process them, whether cooking or not, you can afford to be very gentle and lenient. Take it at your own pace. Let your body adjust. So you have time on your hands in that sense. So
What did that look
just
like
be
for you,
gentle with
Eli?
yourselves.
What did the transition look like
Say
for
it
you?
again. Oh, it was similar. There were some things that were just like harsh, stop, no more, done, right? Particularly meat products. So I went from a complete anything goes eater, like never a carnivore. I never did a carnivore. Nobody did that until recently for some
Yeah.
reason. I don't know why that's popular. It's so silly. But anyway, yeah, I ate everything goes when, back when I was a kid. And then one day it was just like nope, no more. And I turned into a complete vegan, zero transition, never looked back for not even a single day. And the reason I was able to do that was because it wasn't very hard. I just read enough material and not that much to make it very objectively obvious that I was doing something very silly with my diet. So I was like, oh, really? That's what I'm doing? Okay. Put the book down. I am now done with that. Really easy. Boom, done. So that was an instantaneous change. Another instantaneous change was wheat products. As soon as I knew what I was doing with bread and wheat products, it was like, oh, okay, done, right? No transition, nothing. Now, it was easy to do that because there were thousands of other options available. Anything goes. Like there's how many plant options there are. It's a joke. There's so much variety at your disposal. Can't even imagine every flavor conceivable. So
What was
so
you
I knew I
eating?
wasn't gonna.
What did you replace it with? What was you having from that?
Pretty much think of any whole food plant food, I would eat it. Potatoes, lentils, quinoa, if we're talking about the grains and the starches. Not as much rice. I was never big into rice. But yeah, all the lentils and the split peas, buckwheat, quinoa, um, squash, potatoes, all sorts of potatoes. I love potatoes. So all of that, tons of vegetables as well, anything and everything, broccolis and arugulas and um, uh, Brussels sprouts and spinaches and broccolinis
Did you
and
enjoy
whatever.
sauces? Did you enjoy the sauces on them, or did you generally have those plain? What did you like to put on them? Because from England. We like to put, you can't just have, for us, it was vegetable starches with no sauces. You have to have a sauce. You have to have something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What was your go-to?
My 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 go-to sauces weren't really that. I was never big on the sauces. Not that I don't like sauces. It's just that maybe like at home, it just felt like that's something you get at the restaurants. When I'm at home, it's just something simple. Tomatoes very often constituted the base type of flavor that I was
Yeah.
adding to a meal. I used a lot of tomatoes, carrots. Like I blended up tomatoes and carrots often with some other like either lime or lemon juice. Like pretty good, pretty good
Yeah.
sauces, but fairly simple. But I
Any
also
spices? Salt, like salt or anything?
yes, yes, yeah, I would season my food with lots of different herbal seasonings, and I would also use salt as well. And but I was gonna add that I probably didn't use sauces as much because usually the way if I was eating cooked food, that was liquidy and soft enough that it just served as enough substance for all the vegetables to be mixed in well. So
Yeah.
if I was doing lentils, it's liquidy enough that I just mix a whole bunch of well-seasoned lentils into a big bowl of broccoli and Swiss chard and sprouts and whatever.
Yeah.
And as long as the lentils were like seasoned well and you just mix it all up, you didn't need a sauce. It's just the
Because you have
lentils
to be
did that.
careful with sauces, especially the processed sauces. So that would need to go because your palate changes. They're so stimulating, the sauces, aren't they? And this is what triggers your food frenzies. And if you can take
Yes,
those out and get back to simplicity, and just
yes,
enjoy the herbs, and then slowly, reduce and reduce, and you enjoy them whole on their own. That took me a
yeah,
long time to do that because I had sauces in everything. It was
right.
one thing that I was addicted to was sauces, but I stopped getting the sauces from the supermarket because they're just sugar, salt, so much rubbish in them. So I decided to do my own from home and mix and blend different. So that's tomato was one of mine. The lime and lemons, they make it really delicious. Never a big salt person,
Right.
but I did notice there was a craving for the processed sauces, and that's obviously got salt in. But as soon as I started making my own, I came away from. I didn't enjoy putting the sauce in. I think it was a different flavors. So coming off that slowly really helps. I think that for me was a huge difference in transitioning to more simplicity.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, those sauces can be killer. Those sauces can be killer. And so for us in the vegan world, like the nut sauces, right? Nut butters and
I
the
love
nut
how,
rich.
yeah.
Yeah, those are pretty heavy, right? Those are pretty damn heavy.
Yeah.
And now luckily I never really got into those throughout all my plant-based days. I never really got into nut-based sauces. I
Yeah.
did keep some almond butter in the house, but I only used it. I'll tell you like two things I used it for. I used it for there were these rice, how do I call it? Like crisps, like rice, not Rice crispy squares, but just these like, I don't know, right? Puffed rice, puffed
Okay.
rice.
Oh, like
Pat,
yeah, I know what you mean. The crispy puffs, like a crispy puff,
yeah, yeah, something
like
like
a
that.
dessert,
Something
like a
like
sweet.
Yeah. So if I would crush those up and maybe add some like banana, like a morning bowl of some sort of
Yeah.
crushed bananas, some oatmeal or whatever, and some of that with some other porridge. I might add some almond butter to that. That was pretty much what I would be using it for. Other
Yeah.
than that, I can't really think of other times when I was like actively eating almond butter. Um, but yeah, this sorry, getting back to the sauces and the nut butters. Yeah, it can ruin a meal. Nutritionally speaking, like in terms of like health, right? You can go from a
Yeah.
big bowl of wonderful whole foods, and then the type of sauce you put on it,
Yeah.
it can kind of ruin things. So you can afford, but the good thing is with the way you prepare your whole foods, how you cook them, how you process them, but you can have them in a way that there's enough water content there that once you just mix in a whole bunch of vegetables, then that's the sauce.
I
So
like that.
for me, that was the strategy. The
Yeah.
strategy was always massive, massive, massive bed or bowl of vegetables, probably raw, like all raw vegetables, and then just add my cooked element to that, mix it all around, and as long as the cooked element was seasoned, then it was great. I didn't need anything.
Mm. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next one is Eureka V. I, beautiful people, I'm a long-term vegan and transitioning to raw food, mostly fruit diet. I love seeds and nuts. So my question to Eli is, do you eat the seeds in some fruit? For example, watermelon seeds and pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, nuts, maybe a little too much fat. I also love sprouts and microgreens and herbs. Does Eli include them on a regular basis?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, great questions.
Mm,
So with seeds, no, I never eat the seeds from the foods the where intaking or biting into and eating the seeds is obviously demonstrated by your, how do I say this? Your natural innate preference for food. when that kind of rebels against the feeling of seed in your mouth, so when common sense says, okay, you're eating seeds, it's uncomfortable, it's annoying, I would never eat those seeds. Okay.
I get that. Yeah.
So watermelon seeds, papaya seed. If you can taste the bitterness or the unpleasant
Yeah.
taste of a seed, it's probably not a good idea to eat, right? So if you can detect it somehow, the seeds that you would be fine eating are the ones that are designed not to be detectable, right? Probably not a revelation for us, right? So strawberry, easiest example is the strawberry. So yeah, it has all the seeds on the outer
Outside.
portion of the strawberry. But it's the strategy of the strawberry plant there, or the strawberry it was, oh gosh, yeah, the strawberry bush, I guess you would say. Bush?
Yeah.
Strawberry bush. The strategy of the plant is to make the seeds palatable so that it just runs through your system, and then you discard it onto the soil when you have a bowel movement at some point later. So that's just the particular strategy that the tree is using to disseminate its seeds, by making the seeds intact as it runs through your system. They're coated with a gel, so they're designed to slide past your teeth and just slide around and not be necessarily ground, and just kind of get through your system. So in that case, yeah, you eat the seeds. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about the seeds from bananas or cucumbers or anything like that. So when it's obvious,
But
when you
watermelon, you'll
can
sometimes get the
detect,
seeds, won't you? I eat as much as I can, but if I feel the seeds, I do spit them out. I don't like to swallow them, but it's
yeah,
inevitable. I'm not going to sit
yeah,
and take all the seeds out from a watermelon. I'll eat them and then I'll just spit whatever
yeah.
I find.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like those, like the tiny little white seeds that you might find in a watermelon. That
Yeah.
that's not a big deal. It's just, those big hard black seeds. Yeah, if you probably don't want to make an extra effort to eat them. When you spit them out, when you feel them in your mouth, just spit them out. And the
Yeah.
same goes for the other seeds. Like grape seeds have pretty big and unpleasant
Yeah.
seeds
Yeah.
to have in your mouth. Like you wouldn't want to try to grind them up and eat them. Right. The idea is for those to be just discarded.
What
So
about papaya
yeah. So
seeds
some
being anti-parasitic? The papaya seeds. Do you not have the? What do you believe? Do you believe in that? That they have
well,
anti-parasite?
yeah, if they're anti-parasitic, then it means that they're offensive to life forms, right? There's a potency in them that's killing some bacteria. The question is that exactly what you want in to be eating in your diet? You don't necessarily want to be eating anti-parasitic foods. I have to qualify that so people aren't going to hear what I'm not saying, right? We want to be eating a diet that does not cultivate or create the necessity for bacteria and parasites to grow and develop in our body. Okay, so we want to be eating food. So in that sense, watermelon and papaya flesh and all the other wonderful foods are anti-parasitic in the sense that they're not creating conditions that your body has to repair itself with the agency of parasites and bacteria and yeast and mold and whatnot. But if we're talking about anti-parasitics as in bacteria die when they come in contact with the thing, it's those things that we might not want to be eating, right? Like the garlic thing, the garlic and onion. Like these things are very, very potent irritants to the system, and they're antibacterial because they're just viciously irritating, right? So my answer to that, and I know that's a bit confusing with it's a confusing concept because you do hear that, like you eat the because they're anti-parasitic. Um, in some cases where there's a serious parasitical overgrowth in the system, sure. I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of very objective therapeutic use for them. But I would say that that would be a temporary thing. What you want is you just want to be eating and living in a way that you don't have parasites, right? That you eat and live in a way such that parasites cannot thrive in your system. That is what you want to do. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to be eating irritants that kill on site bacteria and parasites. So that's a different thing. So on one hand, we're talking about a class of irritating toxins that are offensive to life. You don't want to eat those. But on the other hand, if we're talking about things that are designed for your physiology to intake, that leave no metabolic waste products behind, these are the types of antibacterials that you want to eat, not necessarily the ones that are toxic to life. So I would make the distinction between.
I'm glad you've
That,
mentioned about the garlic and onion, because I have a few of my close friends, raw vegan, that yeah, they love, and I do enjoy garlic, but
yeah,
I find for me it brings up mucus. So where some say, oh, that arguably they say it's a good thing because it's bringing all the mucus out, but I was like, no, I'm having it's an irritant, it's a response, it doesn't sit well with me, and actually I feel not so good. So I've been closely monitoring that over the years because I'm a big onion and garlic fan. I
yeah,
just reduce it now and I feel better.
yeah, yeah. Well, hey guys, and the way to get this straight, get your thinking straight on this, is do just straight experience, right? Prove it to yourself. Do what you're doing, okay? Go on a fruit only cleanse for, it doesn't even have to be for a month, several days, okay?
Yeah.
Several days. It doesn't even have to be a mono fruit diet. It can be any fruit, any juicy water content rich fruit diet. Do that for a week, and then on one day, suddenly introduce a salad or some vegetable meal with heavy garlic. The next morning, you're gonna feel the difference. Your whole for that beautiful
Swirl, man.
hydration, that that effortless feeling of full hydration that you woke up with every morning, with every morning that you did the fruit, that will be gone. Then the morning after this garlic, we will have desiccated all the tissues and irritated all the tissues all the way down your throat, and you will feel it, right? I can detect this immediately,
Yeah.
the difference between eating something with garlic in it and not, right? It is irritating. There's no way around this. This is an objective fact. Now, we can still use garlic and whatnot to season our food, onions to season our food. I've done it many times before, and it is great, right? Because it's pungent enough that if you just do it in the right proportions, you add
Yeah.
this wonderful flavor, and it's not too bad. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it is an irritant. You will never be able to avoid that fact about that class of food. So take that information and do with it what you will.
Experiment. That's what
But
I always say. I encourage, if you're getting conflicting information, be your own guru. Test it yourself.
yeah,
On this path of being
test it.
your own, take some, take whatever anyone's saying with some discernment and just practice, just experiment. And that's all
Exactly.
I encourage, is try it yourself. And as your body gets cleaner and cleaner, you'll become more sensitive. You're more aware. You might not feel that initially because maybe there is, there's still toxicity in the body, but the cleaner you get, I do find that's when I'm really tuned in. I fine tune
Yeah,
things and I notice. And you do. That's a great answer to say and respond to. Do a fruit only and see the
yeah,
difference.
right. Yeah, I mean, and if you want the really dramatic route to discovering your true relationship, you don't even need to do that. Just okay, eat 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 onion. Just eat onion, right? Raw. raw onion.
Yeah.
Just eat straight raw onion for dinner one day. See how you feel. Your throat will be on fire. You'll be irritated to high hell. And then the question you have to ask yourself is the natural food for a species supposed to cause rampant irritation on every meal?
Yeah.
Probably not. I mean, I don't know. It would seem like a silly design choice by God to to make your food perpetually irritating.
Yeah.
So anyway, it would just seem that there are better choices. Like, I mean, if uh, other foods, fruit, vegetables, nuts and seeds and whatnot, they don't have that effect, they're probably better choices.
So do you eat any of the dry fruits? What people class as nuts or hazelnuts and walnuts are classed as dry fruits? Do you eat those?
I think most nuts that you get are all going to be, regardless of whether they're called raw or not. I think that's all a marketing gimmick. I think they're all dehydrated to some extent. They have to be because
Can't
nuts
eat, it's
like off the
poison.
tree are so yeah, they're moist. And so they have to be in order to package them, like they have to do some sort of dehydrating or heat treatment in the worst cases. So okay, do I include them? I always say that they're on my menu plan. Like if I had the Eli Martyr menu that you could order from, nuts are going to be on the menu. You can order them, but I don't do it very no, I don't do it very often. It's quite rare that I eat nuts. Um, but it's yeah, yeah. I'll just leave it at that. It's a rare thing that I eat nuts. Dehydrated food. I used to make use of dehydrated fruits far more than I do now, but
Yeah.
I did make use of them much more consistently in my earlier years, and I just over time it's again it's gradually your body develops more and more and more sensitivity to what really treats it the best. And so you could notice, start to pick out little um, evidences in your own experience, your own personal experience, that this
Mm.
food wasn't treating you as well as some of the just natural whole foods. And so over time and enough repetition, you start to put two and two together. And then it's like, okay, I don't think I want these things as
Yeah.
often anymore. And so you just naturally shift. You know, it wasn't any sort of regime I put myself on. Like I must now give up, dried foods. No, and it was never that. It was just kind of a very natural, smooth
Yeah.
transition away from them. And when I say away from, it's not that I would not eat those now. Every once in a while, I would not mind some dried food. It's great.
Yeah.
There's one of my favorite meals actually is apricot. So apricot that's just soaked apricot. It's oh man, it's so tasty. The last time I had them, it was what I brought to a restaurant. Some like my friends, high school friends, were all going out to I think it was a Mexican restaurant, and so whole table littered with all sorts of just garbage nonsense. But I wanted to fit in somehow, so I brought a container just full of soaked dates, and
Yeah.
so when I asked for a plate and then just could put like a whole bunch of soaked dates in the plate and then just brought some chopsticks and ate soaked dates. And so
Amazing.
tasty. Oh my god. Oh, so tasty. So I
Yeah.
don't mind doing that stuff every once in a while, but it's not my go-to.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you find that what you were sensing was just to say that your mood is like subtle things as you move through this process is like digestibility, the way they digest and sit in your body and where they make you feel like, and if you're really in tune and become more aware, that's when you start to notice, and then just through the transition you'll start tweaking, and it's just through trial and error, isn't it? And I think if you're in tune with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Absolutely. And I'm so sorry. The lady who asked that question, she's probably tearing her hair out. She's like, "You're not directly answering my question." Sorry. Address that question. So you asked about microgreens as well, Yeah, so
Yeah.
microgreens and then dried fruits and dried nuts. Okay, so we kind of talked about that a little bit. No, those don't make up a consistent part of my diet. Okay, like I mentioned, so it's not a consistent thing in my diet at all. It's much more rare that I include those things. If I'm going to eat stuff that's not fruit, it's much more likely that it'll be from the vegetable family rather than dried fruits or nuts. So now with the microgreens, like you asked, those also don't constitute any kind of regular addition to my diet. It's a very irregular thing. I don't make use of them. I don't make use of them very much at all. But when there's some novelty, some sort of one-off vegetable meal that I feel like trying out, sure, then I'll add it. What would that look like for me in my life? Let's say I wanted tomatoes, but I wanted some extra texture. So I'm like, all right, we'll do tomatoes, celery, some avocado, and throw some microgreens on there. That
Yeah.
would be a sample bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
So something like that. But it's not a regular thing. Very, very, very inconsistent. Very
Why don't you have the
infrequent.
microgreens? Because people are big, they're big on the microgreens. I've never been a big,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm interested, but I've never
No.
been big.
Yeah, I mean, okay. When when I can walk into a grocery store and I can see uh honeydew melons on clearance for 3.99, big ass, honeydew melon for 3.99, let's just say on clearance at the Asian store. And then I look over to the other aisle and I see 5.99 for microgreens in a package like this that you could if you breathe too hard, you could digest all of them in a second, right? So there's no calorie content whatsoever. And then I've got all this fruit, like a bunch of pears. Like I could eat a bunch of pears for cheaper or the same price, and that's a meal. A microgreens is not like it's not. It's because we're not herbivores, so you know microgreens are not going to be very satisfying. They don't. Like if you ever just tried to eat just microgreens, I mean, prepare to be hungry, right? It's not going to
Yeah,
satisfy.
yeah.
So I think what I'm just doing is I'm just defaulting to what I would naturally go for, and the more I
Mm.
do that, the less I find I need to spend money on like some microgreens.
But there's a lot of
If I'm
confusion
going,
though, Eli, isn't there? Because people feel like I just had a statement this morning, and it's quite a common, about there's not enough minerals in, vitamins in the fruits these days. This is why you need them from these leafy greens, these microgreens. Because of the breeding of fruits, the fruits aren't as good quality. There's this that's going around. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Not getting enough from the fruits to sustain
right.
and be healthy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. There is, as long as you are satiated, okay, so if you can make it to the end of the day and you're satisfied, the chances are that you've got enough for what you need for that day. Okay, your body is very intelligent. Your body is way more intelligent in terms of its adaptability and how it adjusts your entire metabolic function in any direction, whether it's excessive calories or very, very few. Your body is so good at making these fluctuations and adjustments to accommodate your lifestyle. So if my point is, if you are satisfied, you probably got enough for that day because there is everything, the whole nutrient profile. It's all in all foods, right? You're getting everything in all foods, but the proportions vary, of course, between different foods. So there's going to be proportions of nutrients that are much, much more concentrated in plant fruit. You'll find the opposite as well. vitamins and enzymes and that kind of stuff. You'll find fruit is very rich in that. Proteins and fats and lipids and all this kind of stuff, all the macronutrients. It's all in all of it, whether fruits or vegetables. So the nutritional profile that we're looking for is in everything. Okay, that's the first point that we can ease ourselves, put ourselves at ease with, right? It's in everything. The next question that arises naturally is, oh, but is it enough to sustain me? Well, luckily, nature provided us with a timeless fail-safe gauge, barometer to assess whether we've gotten enough. And that is, are you starving? Like, are you your hunger, right? Your hunger drive, your appetite, right? So that's how you tell. If you've gotten enough food, whole food, right, then you're fine, right? Your body is able to to adjust, as long as you don't eat just that food for the rest of your life, for 2 years or whatever. If you have any kind of reasonable variety in your diet, you are getting the nutrition you need, provided you're getting enough calories for your body. Okay.
Do you have organic? Do you go organic at all?
Not all the time. No, not for everything. There's some things that there's some foods that you don't need to be as picky with when it comes to organic or not. And with organic, again, we're always playing with a marketing thing here. The organic industry is like any industry. It's a money making industry. There's a bit of market duplicity there, and a lot of the times we're being taken for a bit of a ride. There are just as many. I shouldn't say just as many, but the use of pesticides and herbicides and whatnot is just as common in the organic food cultivation. It's just the category of herbicides, like how they classify certain herbicides and pesticides. That's the only difference. Like, it's a certain class that can be used for conventional and a certain class that can be used for organic. But they're all sprayed, all of them, right? They're all sprayed with all sorts of stuff. In some cases, the organic sprays that they use for organic food are more toxic than their synthetic counterparts in some cases. So that being said, there are definitely foods that you would want to eat organic. Yeah, for sure.
Which ones are you more picky with? Which ones do you always make sure they're organic?
Yeah. Apples, peaches apples and peaches are definitely stuff you want to have that's organic. If you're eating carrots, I should say root vegetables. If you guys eat root vegetables, your root vegetables you probably want to make sure are organic, for sure.
Yeah, because as well with this, because there's a depletion of the soil. This is another argument, is that the fruit is more nutrient rich because the roots dig deep. This just made sense to me a few weeks ago. I was like, yeah, why are we worrying about the soil depletion when the roots of a fruit tree are so deep? You're going to get plenty. So it's more of the root, and they're the ones, the top layered ones. Obviously, the sprays is a little bit different. But so you were saying peaches, apples. I can't get peaches here. I'm disappointed. I don't know why they don't. I can't get them imported. But grapes.
Strawberries for sure, organic.
Okay,
Like some berries, like cranberries and whatnot, for sure, organic. But then there are other things that are not necessary to be organic. So any fruit that has a thick skin that you discard, avocado, pineapple, all of your melon varieties, mango, papaya, those don't need to be organic. Like, you don't need to kill yourself financially just for those. As long as you discard that skin, then you're okay. And GMO is a different thing. Obviously, GMO products are a big no-no. So we don't want GMO
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So no, of course, I never eat GMO, but I definitely eat a mix of organic food and conventional stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Fantastic. Okay. Next one is um, what are his favorite and least favorite fruits? How has his this is from Siriana Sil? How has his health changed in the last few years? Does he feel like he's constantly getting healthier every day? How long did he experience detox symptoms for in starting the diet? Great questions, actually. So if you forget them all, there's about 4 in there. So what's your
Okay,
favorite
yeah,
and least
there's a bunch of them.
favorite? Your favorite and least favorite fruits, Eli? Or you've just said your favorites. You say apricots, we say apricots.
Apricot, yeah. Apricots. I'm never sure which way to say it. Like I say both
Oh
sometimes.
dear,
Apricot,
interchangeably.
apricot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changes. Least favorite fruits. Okay, the apple. I like. I don't mind apples.
I'm the
They're not
same.
my favorite.
Yeah.
They're not my favorite.
That's all we
They're
had
not.
back in England. There was our fruit. It was a staple, orange and
Yeah,
apple. So I'm like, I'm in the tropics now. I don't even have it. I don't often have them.
yeah, yeah. Definitely not my favorite. However, if you chop up apples, chop up a bunch of dates in there, maybe add a
Mm.
banana, now all of a sudden that is a completely different story. Like that now it's just the texture that you get
Yeah.
this sweet and crunchy with the
Combination.
banana. Oh my God, that's an indulgence. Like I haven't had
Yeah.
that in a long time. That's an indulgence, right? Bananas, dates, and apples. But
Yeah.
apples on their own, I'll eat them, but it's not my absolute favorite. Soursop. I
Oh,
maybe I missed something.
that's not
I
your
don't.
favorite.
No. It's no. It's maybe I missed something, but it's not. I found it pretty bad. Like
Oh, you haven't had
I
the
didn't.
right one. You get it ripe off the tree when it's been
Yeah,
sun kissed, and eat that. That was my first experience of a soursop, and it was just amazing.
it was good. See, I'm
Yeah,
convinced that I was just getting bad ones,
I
right?
think so.
Yeah, because they're
I
available in
think
my
so.
stores, and I tried one or two at different times, but it, it was just not a pleasant taste at all. And I know that I'm like, okay, no, hold on. You just probably need someone to show you what a ripe one looks
Yeah,
like, or if so okay, I'll have to go back and try it again because I want to be fair about that. So
definitely.
yeah, so but the sour sops that I did taste were very, very unpleasant. So
Wow.
as of right now, those sour sops were not my
Yeah.
favorite. But I'll take that into consideration. I'll have to try it again. Um, Other fruits that I don't like, there aren't that many that I really don't like. Prickly pears are not. I mean, don't ever
Yeah.
really eat those. Um, there's not too many. I'm
What's
pretty
your
satisfied
favorite?
with all of
You
them.
eat a lot
Yeah.
of mangoes, don't you? I bet mangoes is your
Oh,
favorite. Have
oh,
you get those
man.
amazing Kiao? Have you had Kiao mangoes? Kiao mangoes are everywhere right now, super ripe. They're in season, and I'm just loving them, eating
Oh,
abundance of them.
mm, I would love. Yeah, no, I don't think I have tried those before. I love mangoes, all varieties. The Brazilian mangoes. Like, we have a couple of Brazilian mangoes that we can get here. They are
Oh,
to die for. They're to die for. The Kent mangoes when they're big and soft and
yeah,
yellow and red. Oh my goodness,
good.
so good. So mangoes are up my go-to fruits that are
Because they're
just
high in calories. The more there's just when you get them
yeah,
right, they're in season,
yeah,
sweet, they're filling. You're satisfied.
exactly. It's amazing. It's amazing. Mangoes for sure are up there. Papaya for sure is up there on
Mhm.
my list. Um, in terms of sheer flavor indulgence, jackfruit and durian, I can't beat those. I haven't tasted anything. I've never tasted anything that was more deeply satisfying than jackfruit and durian, one or the other,
Yeah,
either one.
durian's my favorite.
I've never seen anything that could come close. That's like if I'm in the mood for just spoiling myself. But yeah, any of the tropical fruits, so like mangoes and yeah, mango, papaya,
Delicious.
um,
Amazing.
I'd say are probably the most wonderful flavors. Ripe plantain, super good, super tasty
Yeah.
flavor. I made a couple videos on that. But yeah, no, I like everything as well. Tomatoes, I'm a really big fan of tomatoes. Heirloom tomatoes. I mean, I'll make a meal of just a bunch of heirloom tomatoes. So delicious. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And
So how
pears,
has
really.
your health changed in the last few years? Would you say there's been major shifts through this process?
uh, it's been I noticed the most major shifts earlier on, obviously. And as I went on, what happened is just getting more and more and more comfortable and more efficient with less. That is kind of like the change that I noticed more consistently now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with exercise. If you're a beginner at exercise and you start exercising, you'll see a whole bunch of improvements really fast. But then
Yeah.
if you keep exercising for a while, you're going to plateau, and it's going to take a lot more of the same to notice even a little bit of a difference in your physical fitness, right? It's the same type of thing with this health momentum that you generate. Like you notice changes quickly
Mm.
at first, then more changes, more sustained, but not as dramatic. And then as you go on, now we're starting to really refine as you go on. So, uh, so yes, of course, I've noticed this. Just noticed trying to peek out particulars, very detailed particulars about what makes me feel the best. And so over time, it started to be less and less about what food I was eating, but how little I was eating that would make me feel the
Yeah.
best. Next thing. So,
Any
my
deficiencies?
body. What's that? Say it again.
Any deficiencies? Are your strength? Are you deteriorating?
Deficiencies. Um, I'll put it this way. If how I feel right now is what it feels like to have a deficiency, then I'll take deficiency. Let's just
Yeah.
put it that way.
Yeah. Great. And
Yeah.
your strength. The myth of this protein. Where are you getting your protein from, Eli?
I from food, because I eat food, you get protein, and that's it, right? You can't avoid it. No diet where you're not getting protein. It's just exercise and fitness is a result of the type of exercise and fitness that you do, right?
Yeah.
The more you do it, the better you'll get, the stronger you'll get, and diet plays a role. It's important, right? But it's much more important. What you do is much more important, right? In terms of your fitness. And how do we know that? Because you can be exceptionally fit and eat the worst diet imaginable. We know, like, there are Olympic athletes that make a
Mhm.
routine of eating fast food,
Yeah.
right? They're not Olympians because of the fast food that they eat, right? They're Olympians because they train their friggin' butts off. So if you want to be fit, you exercise, and then eating clean food just promotes health in your body. So you're looking at promoting health and then being a fit body on top of your healthy habits, and that's really what we want. Ideally, that's what we want. But can you be strong and fit and healthy eating minimally, like or minimal selection, right? Like a minimal, what people would consider a minimal selection of foods.
Restrictive that they put out there. They see restrictive.
Yeah,
But
yeah, restrictive. Of course you can. Yeah, of course you
yeah.
can. Because you're not being deprived nutritionally. That's why. It is why that we can do that, is because we are not being deprived nutritionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I were being deprived nutritionally, I not be able to appear here like this at this point, right? Almost 8 years later.
Yeah, incredible. It's very inspiring. And also, she said, how did he experience detox symptoms when starting the diet? Did you go through some detox? But you did a transition, so if you're doing it wisely, it's not as intense.
Yeah.
But it all depends.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So the immediate answer is I didn't notice harsh transitionary symptoms. Okay. So the type of really harsh symptoms that some people might experience, those I didn't have to deal with. And and I'll say it's probably because I was taking care of removing the glaring offenses from my diet way before I went fruitarian, way
Yeah,
before. Like meat was long gone. You know, processed foods was long gone. Like I'd never been to restaurants. Like I almost never eat out at restaurants. Like that I took care of when I was a kid, right? So by the time I was ready to make a switch to fruitarianism, I'd already done loads of fasting, right? Loads of fasting, uh, a bunch of cleansing challenges, and a diet of pretty much a raw food diet, some cooked elements, but all prepared at home, clean ingredients. So yeah, so I was well on my way to making lots of these transitionary steps before I
yeah.
knew that I was going to be doing a fruitarian diet in the future.
And
So I got a say it again,
emotional
sorry.
emotional attachments to them. Did you ever struggle with like imbalance? I noticed like we had on the first conversation we had, women seem to be more emotionally attached to foods as a
Mm-hmm.
comfort. Did
Yeah.
you have any issues with that? I know you said you didn't really. You're quite self-controlled, aren't you? You've got a very disciplined personality.
Yeah, I do tend to be, yes, I do tend to be very when I want to make a change, when I want to do something, yes, I tend to be able to just like,
Black and
oh,
white.
okay, well, is that what I'm doing? Bam. Like
Wow.
I'll just did I no, I didn't have too many hangups to get over. Potatoes was definitely one thing that took longer for me to get beyond. I love potatoes. Like sweet potatoes was just my jam, right?
Yeah.
That was well, for lack of a better expression, they were my meat and potatoes, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I loved potato, sweet potato, and
Yeah.
that was I think the last thing that I transitioned away from. But it wasn't like this long, arduous type of, oh, I'm being riddled and racked with cravings. I can't, I never really went through that as much.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's because I was very, very well versed in the literature. So I knew exactly why I was doing everything I was doing. Like there was
Yeah.
no question about it. That's why. So like I was straight as an arrow when it came to
Yeah.
understanding why it was in my best interest to abstain from the other things.
You had no
So
doubt in your mind. When you've got no doubt, yeah, that
no doubt.
is a big difference. Yeah.
Yes, it's a game changer. It's a game changer when you're like straight as an arrow, no doubts, confidence of a mountain, right?
Yeah.
That makes all the difference in the world. Like when you're armed with a knowledge of a thing,
Yeah.
then the rest of the world starts to not affect you as much. It's the water
Yeah.
off the duck's back, right?
Yeah.
So now the pizza place
Definitely.
next door it doesn't bother me as much because it's like, well, I'm not gonna pour gasoline down my throat, right?
Yeah.
Because that's obvious you wouldn't do that. So that type of thing.
It is. You're right. You're right. When you're so embodied with it, you don't seem to get the confusion. But
Yeah.
we do make it more complex, and definitely myself make it a
Yeah.
little more challenging at times. But last question, because I am conscious of time.
Oh
Uh,
yes. Yes.
Kalandra Wady, this is a good one. Address the myth that diabetics can't eat fruit. I am not diabetic, but know entirely too many who are. There is still this fear And even in the group, my raw living group, concerned, I'm on this fruit only challenge. I'm on day 31 of the fruit only. Too much sugar, diabetes. Can you just explain about that and how you've come about this too much sugar in the diet?
Gotcha. Okay, so first problem with that is that diabetes is not a sugar metabolism problem, and it has nothing to do with with sugar. Okay, diabetes is a fat metabolism issue, and it has to do with your body being literally encumbered on the inside with fat mass, right? Lipid droplets that get trapped inside of your tissues that interfere with your body's ability to receive the signal from insulin. Has nothing to do with carbohydrate. So the first fact that we have to get straight on is that diabetes is not a sugar metabolism thing. It's a fat metabolism thing. You can see this. You can actually see pictures of this. You can see pictures of what muscle looks like when it's riddled with fat, intramyocellular lipid on the inside. You can see it, right? So it's a thing. It's a real thing. So diabetes, not a sugar metabolism thing. Okay? That's the first issue. Second issue is that we can't say sugar. It's just too confusing. We need to start being responsible with our language, right? If we want to be precise, if we want to have precision, we need to use terms that define one particular thing and nothing else. Otherwise, we get confused. We start to conflate terms. So the other thing to note is that sugar is, if we want to say sugar, fine. But let's talk about sugar as the processed variety of sugar, of carbohydrate. And if we're talking about food, right, carbohydrates from food, that is a completely different thing. That represents a natural relationship to its effects in your body, whereas sugar does not. One is a toxin, the other is nutrition. So that's the second thing to remember, is that anytime you're eating a whole food, you are not getting sugar, okay? You are getting carbohydrate, which is exactly what your body wants. Number three, the third thing to know, the raising of your blood, the raising of blood sugar. We're being drubbed over the head, being told that this is something to be feared. This is a problem. This is not a problem. Your blood sugar has to rise when you eat. When you eat food, your blood sugar rises. This is the natural, physiological, rhythmical response to eating food. If you want to avoid this, then you may have to live on a different planet. It's not happening here. That's what your physiology dictates. So, it's like what I would equate it to is heart rate. Okay, you have a heart rate now. Yeah, if your heart rate is constantly elevated, it's just buzzing on high. Yeah, we might see that as a problem. We might see that as something that you want to get checked out, or something that could flag some sort of irregularity in your body, some sort of disease. Okay, but your heart rate elevating is not an issue. It is the natural physiological response to either conditions in the body or exercise. So if we think that your elevations in heart rate is the problem, then by that reasoning, we should never exercise or do anything that raises your heart rate.
Brilliant.
It's nonsense. It's silly. Okay. The raising of blood sugar is just as natural a response as your heart rate raising in response to exercise. You eat, your blood sugar goes up. When your body has processed the carbohydrate from the food, the blood sugar goes back down. What are people worried about? Where is this fear coming from? We have to question this, right? We're being told that blood sugar rising is a problem. It is not a problem. It is a problem if what we're eating is unnatural food and unnatural combinations of carbohydrate and fat-rich refined oils, refined fats. Yeah, now it's a problem, but that's because we're complicating human nutrition by eating things in weird combinations that were not
Yeah.
designed to take in at the same time. That is a problem, but that's a separate thing. Okay, we're talking about the objective phenomena of blood sugar raising. Is that a bad thing? No, of course it can't be, right? Telling me some some natural human on the field eating a berry from the bush, this is a problem because his blood sugar will rise after eating a berry. Are you crazy? Like
Yeah.
it's so childish. It's so childish.
Yeah.
And so yeah, when we're talking about diabetes, diabetes is insulin resistance, and that is going to be predicated on the amount of fat-rich food, ultra fatty food that you're eating in your diet, and worse if you're eating that in the
Combination.
context of hydrate-rich food. Yeah, yeah. Protein, a high protein diets, because high fat diets often come paired with high protein,
Yeah.
and that's a disastrous combination as well. I should say, guys, just so you know, protein is insulinogenic. Okay? Like protein requires insulin. We're always told carbohydrate, insulin, and we make that connection, and we never think anything else. Protein has that connection too. You need insulin in order to store protein.
Yeah.
But I don't see anyone talking
Yeah.
about that, right? Yeah, you
Interesting.
need insulin to store protein. And if you have a very, very protein rich meal, excuse me, your blood sugar will be out of control. It just takes a lot longer for that to
Yeah.
show up in the short term. And so you, when it comes to diabetes, okay, what you want is you want to be eating carbohydrate rich food, and not with no concentrated processed fats eaten with the meal. And if you do that, then you'll have a natural physiological response to the carbohydrates, and your glucose sensitivity will just continue to get better and better and better and better and better and better over time. Right? You'll get more and more and more insulin sensitive, and you
Yeah.
will not get insulin resistance with whole food, plant-based food, plant-based material. And you and even if you were eating processed sugar, right? It's that's a bad thing. Like it's toxic, that you don't want to eat that, but it wouldn't give you diabetes.
Yeah.
You don't get
Yeah.
diabetes if you're eating like the fat rich stuff on top of that. You're not going to get diabetes with a whole food plant based approach with the addition of some processed sugar. You're not going to get diabetes.
What about the nuts and the because a lot of people don't like to in the fruitarian movement, they don't like putting, your nuts, seeds with fruits. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and
That's
that's
an
and
issue.
that's
A
that's pretty
similar
good
issue.
advice. Yeah, that's pretty good advice. It's we're talking about a clash of an enzymatical clash in your system. They require just two completely separate chemistries to be
Yeah.
to be digested.
Broken down. Yeah.
Sometimes they can be problematic if you eat them in the same bolus, right? In the same clump, then your digestive system can be kind of confused, and it won't be able to digest either of them efficiently,
But not
because it'll
diabetes. It's not going to cause diabetes, is it?
no,
Yeah. It's just more of
no,
the digestive
I
issues.
would highly doubt that. I would
Yeah.
highly doubt that. The biggest risk for diabetes is going to be from animal products.
Yeah.
That's the dangerous
Oils.
fats talking about, really. When we're talking about diabetes risk, we're talking about animal protein in conjunction with the animal fats. That
Yeah.
is the risk. That is the major risk. It does not have to do with plant-based carbohydrate rich, right?
Yeah.
So there's that too. And to answer your question, I know. I highly doubt that you'll be getting the as much of the nearly as much of the diabetic risk from, let's just say, improperly combining fruit and nuts. If you find that you can digest those things without immediate trouble, like without discernible trouble, it's your call. I mean, I guess you deal with it better, but generally speaking, they do require different mediums to digest in, and so you wouldn't want it. Nuts digest very slowly. They're one of the most complicated things to digest.
Yeah.
Fruit is the complete opposite. So inevitably, what's going to happen is if you eat them at the same time, the nuts are going to be going down the pipe really slowly, and all the really fast digesting carbohydrates are just going to ferment to high health.
Yeah.
You're going to have gas and thing and whatnot. So yeah, so you don't want to do that, but they are raw foods, yes, and they are going to have a better response in your body than the processed stuff, and especially the meat. That's for sure.
Yeah, fantastic, amazing. I want to ask so many more questions, and I did have a few more, but we'll have to stop it there. So thank you so much, Eli, for coming on. But I would like to end on the be, feel, and stay rollish. Actually, before we do that, where can people find you? You've got the Freemelon Society on YouTube.
Yes, yeah. So you can find me at the Freemelon Society on YouTube, and my Instagram is Freemelon_Eli, if I'm remembering correct. Yeah, Freemelon_Eli. You can find me on Instagram. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, Instagram and YouTube. That's where you find me.
Yeah, and follow his journey of not deteriorating, getting stronger, feeling amazing. So, and looking great skin, strong. Amazing. And I like this. I like how people are proving the BS. There's so much I like. I'm open-minded to those that are like proving what people think is not possible, and you're showing like what most think's impossible. I'm like, it's not a deteriorating fruitarian. You're strong. I think, yeah, and it's the same with me with the raw vegan, you know, and even the fruits now. I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm thriving, we're not deteriorating, we're not shriveling. It's a little scrawny little things. We're strong and we're leading the way, and it's showing up at what's possible. So thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me come onto your platform again. I know you have to go. So yeah, we'll if there are more questions, then of course we can address them.
Definitely. We're going to regularly, if you don't mind. I love having you on, and we get so many people asking questions, and it's great to share, and we'll get a group of us as well. So we end with the be, feel, and stay rolicious. Are you ready, Eli? Be, feel, stay rolicious.
Be, feel, and stay rawlicious, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. See you next time. Bye-bye.